So good morning, konnichiwa. I will do it in English this time. It's a good transition with what Michael explained, because this is the GT86, and what he says is really true. For the James Bonds out of you please try it. It's really an extraordinary car. So I've seen in a few presentations yesterday, people ask the question, are you more lean or are you more IT? I didn't answer yes to one of the two, because I've been in IT for 30 years this year, but I've been studying lean without knowing it was that for a long time. I started at Volkswagen in the 80s. I stayed 17 years at Volkswagen in Belgium, in the factory that makes now the Audi A1. Then I went to China for a few years, which had some personal consequences, because I have now a Chinese wife, so I speak Chinese at home, and Japanese at work, which is difficult to put together sometimes. And then I went to France, where I was CIO of Europcar, which was still Volkswagen at that time. But at Volkswagen, I studied a lot of Toyota concepts. Of course, I knew they were Toyota because the names were Japanese, except when it was just in time, which doesn't seem to be a Japanese name. But when we talked about Kaizen, Pokayoke, and things like that, but I didn't understand what was really underneath the surface, even though we had some Volkswagen people in factories of Toyota in Japan, and they were sending us big reports, 20 pages every week about everything they saw. So that's the first time I got quite interested. So I studied Japanese for a few years at that time. And then I forgot about that, and I went to China, I went to France, and even I changed job. I went to a logistics company in Paris. And in 2005, I got a phone call to go to Toyota to work in Belgium. And that is, I'm from Brussels originally, so that's the time where I thought, well, that is really, everything seems to come together now. So I can only say yes to this offer. So here I am. So I'm only 8 years at Toyota. This is why definitely I cannot tell you I'm a Toyota Way specialist. Yeah? I had a Japanese sensei for 4 years, Chiba-san, who was at the same time my boss, and he had 35 years in the company. So, okay, when I said 5 years, he said, okay, you are nothing. So he made a nice drawing where I was under the ground, and there was some tree coming out of the ground, and at the top there was a nice flower, and he says, yeah, I will bring you from here to here. Yeah? So I don't know if he succeeded, but now he retired, but at least I learned a lot with him. The Toyota Way, the Toyota values, of course, extremely important for us. We have two groups of values, let's say. On the left, the continuous improvement values with Genshi Genbutsu, which means really go to the Gemba, go to the root cause, see the facts, and so on. By the way, everybody thinks Genshi Genbutsu is Japanese, but try to say this to a Japanese person. Actually, they may not understand what it means. Yeah? So this is a Japanese Toyota word. Still is Japanese language. Kaizen, of course, continuous improvement, but challenge, I think some of what Michael said indicates what challenge can mean. Yeah? Challenge must be there all the time, otherwise you don't develop. On the right, and that's the link to that, respect for people, and I will come back to that, because indeed respect for people is misunderstood many times, and teamwork. So I will read the sentence here. So for continuous improvement, without ever being satisfied with the current situation and always pursuing the most practical and effective solutions, we strive to continually increase our knowledge. So there you have continuous improvement. Yeah, it should never stop. There's always something to improve. Without being satisfied with the current situation, well, the basis for that is you need to know and to understand the current situation. If you don't go to the Gemba, you don't understand the current situation, how can you measure the gap and know what to improve? And always pursuing the most practical and effective solutions. We strive to continually increase our knowledge, continuous, and the knowledge, of course. We want to continually learn and know more to achieve more. Now, on the right side, we respect people and believe the success of our business is created by individuals and good teamwork. We need both. We need individuals who learn, but also they should learn a lot and not be able to work with others. That will not work either. Now, some more about this respect for people. It's probably better said that respect for people is the respect for the ability of people to solve problems, to develop. So you can respect somebody by shouting at him. In some cases, this is the best thing to do at that time. It doesn't mean you should do it all the time, because if you do it all the time, at some point you don't respect. We have a joke that we imagine sometimes some of our guys, by the way, Mark is in our team, so it happened to him also and to me. Sometimes they go home and they say, oh, probably I got too much respect from my boss today. But basically, if we believe in this, that the people's ability to think is boundless, then really we can together achieve great things with those people. And eventually they will be thankful, even though at first sight is not always the case. So the benefits on the right is to provide opportunities for personal development, and in the end, of course, give a sense of achievement, self-realization, self-improvement. It's really interesting to hear the stories of people who tell how much they suffered with their sensei. But when they say that, they're actually happy to talk about that. Yeah? It doesn't seem a very sad experience. Yeah? There's a saying in Greek language saying, edus otentam amnestai ponon, which means it's sweet when you have suffered to remember your pains. Yeah? So it is really something like that. But not only that, because all this learning enables you to really achieve things you wouldn't have achieved otherwise. And this is the sense of achievement that you get from it. Yeah? So, on top of that, you have the Toyota business practices. So the values are the basis of everything we do. But to know how to do it, you need more than that. And that's where the practices come. So that's why we have Toyota business practices training in the company that is systematic, so nobody will escape this training. And the training is a very intensive training, so you have the formal classroom training at the beginning, that's a few days. Of course, after that, you just understand the basic concept. The important thing is the practice. So the practice is your first project, and that is very tricky because it's probably the time where your coach will show to you how much you have to forget and how much you'll have to learn and so on. And you may indeed not agree at first. And so this is normally a quite painful process. Actually, if it's not painful, probably it has not worked. I remember, well, I was not in that one, but maybe you were, a session where everybody had done their TBP for 6 months, and then there was a big session with the boss of the department, and the conclusion was, well, you have all failed, basically. So nobody, whatever quality they had, nobody had succeeded, and they all had to do it again a second time. And of course, there also, if you do it once, it's nothing, because, okay, you can complete the training, you get a small certificate, but you have done one, yeah? If you want to get good at that, it's like the swing in golf. After once, you're not very far. So you have to do it hundreds of times to get it. And each A3 result of a TBP is different, yeah? So because some people say, oh, it's boring, always the same structure and so on, but it's, even if the structure is the same, which helps the management to go directly to the right place to see what has been done and not unable to escape by using a different format every time. But the creativity you can put in each box is boundless, actually. So at the end, there is a formal presentation of an A3. And depending of where the person is, the level to whom you will present in the company is different. I had the chance in 2008 to do the Toyota Executive Development Program, which was partially in the United States, partially in Japan. We had to prepare also my same process, TBP and an A3 at the end. But I had to present to the president of TMC. At that time, it was Watanabe. And of course, the process that leads to present such a document to the president of Toyota is a process where many other people will have seen it before. So you learn a lot. And by the way, I will talk about the subject a bit later. So if required, because the point is to learn, so it's not like at school or at university, if you fail, you're out. Of course not, yeah? If you fail, you get more chance to learn, basically, because you will have a second chance, and possibly a third chance, no problem, yeah? It will just take more time. And so second chance presentation can be scheduled, but several months after the first is important, because if you fail, it means that some basic concept you didn't get them, so you have to redo, maybe even a different subject. That happens regularly. And then, of course, follow up on the job training, identify problems on the daily work. Very important that you identify problems, that you don't think I have no problems, otherwise you won't learn more. Taking decisions, and in all management processes, reporting KPIs and so on. Now, next section, okay, I'm at the half of the time. Manufacturing TPS and IS. So how to link TPS and IS, and there was some very profound presentation by Dan Jones yesterday showing the IS and Lean and the CEO perspective, which can all three be different. And that's very true, and I mean it every day, because being in the company that, well, started with the Lean concept and being in IT, I see those contradictions, and having the CEO as my boss, I see those as well. So how to reconcile all those things. So implement continuous flow to highlight problems. Design, and I'm talking about IT, of course, design software deliverables with small lot size, with a short PDCA cycle to highlight issues very quickly after they occur. And encourage Heijunka, so leveling of resources, and allow Jidoka, so yes, stopping when you have problems and things like that. Go and see, Genshi Genbutsu, very important. In requirements gathering, of course, you don't gather requirements without talking to the actual users. You have to choose which ones you talk to, of course. You have to challenge them also sometimes, but you have to go through that step. And sometimes we are at a head office of Europe, so sometimes we have a few layers between us and the customers. So we may develop a system for ourselves as head office. We may develop a system for a national marketing and sale company, but that system may go to a dealer or retailer who will then talk to a customer. So you have to bear all those levels in mind when you develop a system, and that is extremely difficult to do, because in some cases we may think something is very good for the customer, but maybe the intermediate levels will say, yeah, but it's not good for me. So you have to reconcile those various objectives. In software development and project management, create virtual Gemba and deliver meaningful KPIs to clarify the fact. The Gemba moves across the project. So at the beginning of the project, your Gemba should be at who will use your system and understand the requirements and so on. Now, if you're in the construction phase, the Gemba is where the code is produced. Yeah? early in my career, I had for 4 years, I had a programmer in front of me, and only when he left the company, we realized that the code he created was a total mess. But nobody ever looked at his code. But we could see in 2 seconds, literally, that it was a mess. But nobody looked at it. Yeah? So you need to do to be at the right Gamba at the right time. And of course, the Gamba these days can be, you can have people programming in India, in Japan, in many countries in Europe. So it's a virtual Gamba, so you have to find a way to get the code regularly to do code inspection. We have suppliers in Turkey. We get every day or every week the code they have produced. We have to wait to check the code and so on. Now, stop and fix the problems and Jidoka. So by using continuous flow and Heijunka, we encourage frequent line stops early in the project to fix problems. Very important, because you know very well when we discover problems later, it's more expensive to fix, and expensive in money, also in time. Maximize value of human checking by automating where possible. Again, the purpose is not to automate, but if the check is very long to do manually and we have easy ways to automate, then we can do that as well. Develop the team, and of course the team includes suppliers. We shouldn't develop only Toyota people and not the suppliers. Seems obvious, but very often it was not done. Encourage team members to understand the entire process, also by job rotation. You're an IT guy, tomorrow you will be the one expressing the requirements on the other side. That brings a lot, actually. Involve suppliers fully, being open about process and measures up front. Very important. Use technology to help the process. Maybe a bit less important, but important as well. So once the basic principle and the operation are clear, use technology to support it. And it's very important that the basic principle and operation are clear before doing that. And don't follow a product's operation without thought. And as I said before, visualize your process and results. In software development, you have to visualize defects and causes, visualize the entire project using one document, plan, issues and risk, cost and quality. We have wall charts, which means they are on the wall, but they can be virtual because now we have people in many locations, so we would see them on the screen. Doesn't matter, but at any point we must be able to see the stages of the project. And we also have check meetings, but I'll mention that a bit later. So this is an example. You don't have to read it through. It is an A3, in this case, showing an application platform roadmap. So what you see, you see here what we are talking about, and here you see all the issues with the current process, where you will normally see many crosses, which means problem, problem, problem. And then the roadmap itself shows, okay, between now and 1 year, these are the activities we will undertake, and this will bring those crosses to triangles, which means so-so, or to circles, which is better. Then after 2-3 years, we will make those changes in architecture, and that will bring those triangles to circles, and maybe one will still be a triangle, and then after 3 to 5 years, finally we'll get circles everywhere. Because we talk about technology life cycle, we may have, of course, that 3 years into this, the technology has changed completely, and we'll then have a completely new roadmap. Of course, that happens as well. But that's part of PDC. Another example of visualization, because people think, well, in A3, I have to do that with those Microsoft tools or whatever. It's very complicated and so on. You can do it on a piece of paper with a pencil, yeah? No problem, as long as the logic is good. And our older Japanese colleagues, they really did it with paper and pencil. Yeah? And when the sensei was shouting at them, they just erased half of their A3 and read it on the same piece of paper to not use one more piece of paper. So we have a lot of things to learn from it. And actually recently, because we have got to do many more things, actually I see more handwritten papers popping up. Yeah, because people said, yeah, I don't have time to do a very good A3, and then we say, don't worry, do it on the whiteboard, do it on a piece of paper, but we want to understand the flow and the logic. Okay, doesn't really matter what the problem is, but in this case, it's a problem of wireless in our vehicle hub in Zeebrugge, and there was an interference with the weather radar of the port. So we had to understand that there was that first. It took some time, and then understand the root cause and countermeasure. And it works now. Okay. Finally, last but not least, I will say a few words about the IS-enabled lean enterprise. This is not making the mistake to say that, of course, it's IS that enables the lean enterprise. Yeah? It's not only IS, but IS is part of this. So how does TME, Toyota Motor Europe in this case, create IS systems that embody lean business processes? If we only make the IS process lean, this benefits IS and has some benefits for the business, but it's not enough. If we can implement systems that makes us lean as an enterprise, this benefits the whole company. So the amount of things that you can influence is much, much higher. It's also much more difficult to do that, of course. So lean IS can deliver big impact in the scope of the IS department, like high revs, but in first gear. Yeah? So that's not the end of it. You want to try the other gears as well. Maybe you should start with the first gear. If we can engage the higher gears through operating at an enterprise scope, larger opportunities will become available to us. It's good on this one, we have 6 gears. Yeah? And reverse, yeah, sometimes we have to do that as well. So this is, okay, the IDC real publication. I didn't check myself in detail their methodology, how they came to that. Maybe some of you have done that. Maybe you can question the results in some way, because it's probably based on what the companies say themselves, some objective indicator, but not always easy to relate to lean or not. But anyway, it says that surveying 800 manufacturers, it showed an average 40% increase in profitability between lean and non-lean companies. By the way, this is IDC property, so be careful with the usage. Worldwide lean companies, median quarterly net profit is what is shown here. And you see that basically the companies that implement lean consistently outperform the others from that point of view. So even from a really bottom line result point of view. So what are the elements required for lean systems? We need a clear direction, consistent from global to company to individual level, and consistent between each division and department. So this is the Hoshin-Kanri process, and I'll come back to that. Complementary approach to strategic and practical objectives, management of process and results, and IS management should have objectives to deliver business improvement, not just to deliver software. So basically, we are not a service provider, and we will never want to be a service provider. Not just that. Of course, we provide service, yeah, but if we see ourselves only as a service provider, we cannot thoroughly implement lean in the company. So the Hoshin-Kanri. So Kanri in Japanese or Guanli in Chinese, same word. It means management. And Hoshin is basically the compass. I saw yesterday in Cesar Ghosn presentation, it was called True North. So that also shows the idea of the compass. So you need to know where to go. Now, you don't always go there with the right line. Sometimes you go a bit to the left, and then next year you will go a bit to the right, but you should bear in mind the goal, the place where you want to be. So for that, you need mid to long-term viewpoint, vertical alignment, but also horizontal coordination, process and results management. Of course, you need to know where you are on that trajectory, and human resource development. So you have the company vision, which looks at maximum performance, but long-term sustainability, prosperity for the company, even for the community where the company is as a consequence. We have at all those various levels the process, and the process should involve everybody. And it was discussed yesterday also. Yes, it's difficult to do. Yes, sometimes this catch-ball process doesn't work perfectly because somebody may have a great idea, but he doesn't find an easy way to get this idea known to the people who should integrate it in the process. So we have to create the opportunities for this exchange of balls to happen. So we need like a football place where people will really exchange the balls at the right timing. Yeah? And of course, sometimes we start the planning process by saying, okay, this is the total amount of money that we can afford to spend. So people think, well, okay, it's not even worth telling them I have an idea. So this we cannot accept. We have to fetch the ideas, even though afterwards we will kill many of them also. But this first brainstorming phase is very important. So if you compare the problem-solving 8-step process and the annual Hoshin-Kanri cycle, you can match them actually to develop an image of the desired future situation, to grasp the current situation, to identify the gaps. This is comparable to clarify the problem. Then you draft the annual Hoshin plan. Basically, you break down the problem, what you want to do in 5 years. You will say, what am I going to do in the next year? Set the targets, you have a Hoshin plan, you engage in nemawashi. So nemawashi is basically to remove a tree with all its roots and put it to another place so that it can still live. Yeah? So this is the concept of nemawashi in Japanese. But basically it means to talk to all your stakeholders to make sure you have buy-in so that the project itself will be successful. Create a deployment plan, and then, of course, you have the do phase. You implement the plan, you check the progress, and you reflect and you restart the cycle. So on the right, we show that basically sometimes people tell us, oh, but you're not flexible at all with this huge process annually. If something essential happens 2 months later, how are you going to implement this into your Hoshin and so on? I've seen it happening. Yeah? We had a few crises in the past years. I've seen the Hoshin change during the year and go through the process again, either through the whole process or through a much smaller process, but that uses the same logic. So we determine daily management items that follow also smaller PDCA cycles. We have countermeasure standardization, and sometimes in the individual objectives of people, we do a midterm review. We can change completely an objective that people have because the situation has changed. But it needs to link back into the company objectives, of course. And then we also Kaizen the Hoshin management process itself. So every year we try to do the Hoshin process better than the year before. So recap about Hoshin-Kanri. Forget about IS and enterprise alignment. Why? Because we are the business. I don't like when we say IT and the business. Yeah, IT is part of the business. Sometimes we call finance the business. Why is finance the business and IT is not the business? It doesn't make sense. Yeah? So we are part of the company Hoshin-Kanri process as IT, as all the other departments of the company. So we are one team with one aim. Of course, everybody has to know how can I contribute most to those company objectives. This is why, for example, in this year's process, we have established high-level objectives for Toyota Motor Europe, but we have told each department VP, like me, what can you do best to contribute to those company objectives? Nobody will tell me what it is. I will tell them what it is. And of course, then we'll measure that it has actually contributed the way I announced it. It allows to clarify the aims and each give maximum contribution. And if an excellent IT system does not give business value, well, it's not an excellent IT system. Thank you very much.